So, Branden Andersen, you're joining us from Newberg, Oregon. I read that you actually started your company in the birthing suite where your baby was being born. Is-
Yeah.
So, the first question I just have for you, Branden, is like, are you still married?
Yeah. Somehow, some way. Yeah,
Yeah.
my wife and I joked that we had two kids that day and they aren't twins. We were waiting for our first kid for a while. So while we were killing time, I thought, you know what? What better time than the present?
Is your like
I
wife
bought the
like
domain
having
name myself.
contractions and helping you think of venture names? What's happening?
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
quickly.
We were just kind of anything to distract in that moment is gold. So that's where we were landing as well. You know, what about this? What about this?
Yeah.
And yeah, sure enough,
Forget
it was.
Silicon Valley. We should all start companies out of birthing suites.
You know what? I think that we're onto something
This is
here.
the
Yeah,
thing. And you do you consider yourself a solopreneur?
yeah, through and through. I feel so tied to it, just because it from the top to bottom, everything that I'm doing is me, and it's been me and a suite of tech tools. But I do feel like when I come into this office and I start working, this comes down to me trying to figure this out as best as I can to serve the community.
You're a hyper local media organization, so doing very local journalism, which is it's so nice to meet you, Brendan, because I feel like everything we read is that local journalism is dead, and you look alive.
Yeah, I'm trying my best, yeah, to
Yeah,
look alive at least, yeah.
yeah, exactly. But talk about that because we do. I feel like I'm a journalist. I've been in journalism for a long time, and I feel like we always talk about media as a dying business. It's been dying as long as I've been in it, and it's still kicking. How do you look at that?
Yeah, for me, it's not so much that it's dying as much as it's reshaping, but it's really difficult when you look at the larger media landscape to see these what I would call tanker ships. It's hard for them to pivot and to churn in the middle of the ocean, right? I consider myself riding on a jet ski. It's really easy for me to pivot. I might not be able to make it across the ocean, but that's why I focus on hyperlocal. I
Mhm.
can stay near the coast. So that's where I'm starting to see this shift happen is that trust in media is fractured.
Mhm.
There's a lot of dialogue that's happening at these higher levels, but on the local level, people still need to know what's happening down the street. And that's been Newsberg's whole credo from the start is answering the community's questions.
Is it very like Parks and Recreation meets The Office, but
I
only with
describe
you,
it.
one person?
Yeah, I describe it that way all the time. If you
Really?
watch Parks and Rec, and you see a Shauna Malwae tweet who's sitting in the corner asking questions, that is actually me showing up to city council meetings and to our actual Parks and Rec meetings, with my little reporter badge and my notebook asking questions. Yeah.
Yeah. And what keeps you going? Because I mean, it's not easy to be a solopreneur, I think.
It's it's important work. I've worked at several different careers. I studied journalism, graduated into a difficult industry, and pretty quickly found my way out of it. But the love of it never left. And what I find day in, day out is not only building a company that supports the community where I'm living and where I'm raising my family, but also supporting the businesses that are trying to make it work here. Shouting out the high schoolers who are doing cool things, all of that is rebuilding community bonds in a time where community bonds are increasingly breaking.
There's that thing, and you ask a lot of people, like, do you trust medicine? And they're like, no. And then you ask them, do you trust your doctor? And they're like, yes, I trust my doctor. And then same thing with news, like media, people be like, do you trust the media? No way. Do you trust your, you know, XYZ journalist? Yeah, sure.
Mhm.
100%.
And there's stories that are still coming out, research stories that are coming out reflecting that exact same thing.
Hmm.
And I think the big reason why is because we do show up. I think a lot of people would recognize me as their local reporter.
So you're doing this all by yourself. You don't have like a staff of reporters. You are your own reporter, editor, CEO, all the things, selling your own
All the above.
advertising, everything.
That's right.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And this is a sustainable business.
I would say that it's exceeded any expectations that I've had to the point where this is my full time and has been my full time job for nearly 2 years now.
I read that you want to bring print back. You start printing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one where it's like you say you're a jet ski. I'm like, maybe you're a horse and a wagon.
Yeah. Yeah.
But print seems to be back. Print actually seems to be back.
There's something really real. There's a lot of stuff that's happening around the internet that people don't feel safe with their data. Social media is increasingly being seen as a challenging way to consume news and information. But most importantly, I have a demographic here in Newberg of 26,000 people. an extra 10,000 in the neighboring community of Dundee, and many of which have said we kind of just want to read the paper again.
Yeah.
And so I've been testing it for a little bit and printing my own little small newsletter to see if people would be interested.
Let's see. Oh gosh.
And
I like a
I print
newsletter so much more when it's not in my email, is what I'm realizing.
that's it.
That's
And
also a nice font.
I dropped these off for free. I wanted it to look like a traditional newspaper,
Yeah.
right? But I have a little locally made comic on the bottom.
Oh
So
wow.
people just want a classic reading experience again, I think.
Okay, well, print aside, how does technology help you scale your business so that you've been able to do this now, run your own successful business for a year and a half, 2 years?
Yeah, I couldn't have done this without scaling technology, ironically, considering the print conversation. But there are so many things that I have been able to do thanks to the use of technology to speed up the process, right? I don't have to go to every city council meeting. They publish them on YouTube the next day, and then I can listen to it at 1.5 speed, which helps me get things done a little bit faster to report on that. Video conferencing, just like we're doing right now over Zoom. This is something that normally I'd have to drive across town or drive to another town in order to sit down and have an interview with somebody to get a face-to-face interaction where you can really get, as you know, the
Yeah.
best interviews because you actually can read people's faces. Rise in AI, I will never use AI as a content generation, but for copy editing is a set of rules, right? And so I worked with an person who works in journalism and AI to develop a copy editing prompt so that it will touch the stories and edit for AP, but it will not change the content, which is the most important thing.
Yeah.
All of these things would have been wholly impossible if I were trying to do it all by myself. I would be able to publish one story per week. And right now I'm averaging 6 to 8 stories per week.
It's good. You need 6 to 8 if you're going to do a weekly newsletter.
That's what I'm saying.
I love that you're like zooming. It doesn't seem like a huge town, Newberg, Oregon. Is it a huge town?
Yeah, we're not that big. We
But
have
you're like zooming because you don't need
26,000.
to go down like a mile.
Even going across town can take 10 minutes. And when you're running this lean, let me tell you, 10 minutes means a lot.
Yeah. It's so funny because when you talk about your business, you keep saying we,
Yeah.
but it's I.
Yeah.
As you said, like the
It's
business is you from start to finish, from head to toe. It's like, but why do you say we?
it's me and Newsberg in this together forever.
Yeah.
I do feel like Newsberg is kind of a child of mine, like I've worked with this thing for the past 3 years trying to build something that I didn't know could ever exist again.
Well, I mean, you birthed it in a birthing suite as your wife was birthing a child.
There's something to it, right? There's something to that. Yeah.
Yeah, local journalism is so important. There's stories that like get to a state or federal level or national or international level, and you're like, wait, somebody, at a local news organization actually covered that 18 months before it got big.
It's so kind that you say that, and something that another thing that keeps me going is what I would call foundational reporting.
Yeah,
So what we report here by going to those city council meetings eventually spin off into larger stories that eventually can spin off into statewide. And without that foundation, the top of the journalism starts to crumble a little bit as well because they don't have that baseline. So
yeah,
it's very cool work. It's something that we're hoping to replicate and find a model that is easy for people to start up in their own communities. And hopefully we can continue bringing local journalism back.
yeah. I hope you can. Local journalism is so important, and what you do is very important. I want to say on that point, there's so much to be done with schools.
There is a gal at a local elementary school
Mhm.
whose mom reads Newsberg, and so she started her own
Oh
called
my
the Weekly
God, I love
Watchman,
that.
and she sends it to me every week. And so I'm going to do a story on her.
Hire that kid, but not
Yeah,
until she's, of working age, because otherwise that'd be a
that's right. That's
scandal
right.
for you at Newberg Media. All right.
That's it.
So nice to meet you, Brandon.